Righto, welcome all. We'll get underway while a few people come in. This is recorded, so anyone who's late can watch the start again. It's a great pleasure this evening to welcome Richard Subtil to our live on the Hub. Welcome, Richard.
Evening, Ferg. Thanks for the invitation, everybody.
Excellent. And Jane Mulholland, that many of you will know, has worked for us for a while. Had a bit of a spell, had a kid, but it's back again doing a bit now, which is awesome. So it's Richard and Jane that'll lead most of this evening. So if you know, I'll be sitting happily in the background. But we might start off, Richard, if you could just run through Omarama Station and what you do there, and then we'll cut to the EID part.
So we're a high country middle of the South Island merino and beef operation, 7,500 commercial ewes, and the property raised goes from 1,400 feet at the house here up to 5,500 on top of the hill. Annual rainfall is about 350 mils, and we've got some really good finishing countries, irrigation, about 500 hectares of irrigation, but a large part of the property is high country in the South Island, and we fatten and kill all our own progeny and also buy in about 3,000 other merinos, and we usually do about 120% weaning of our progeny. So that's kind of the sheep scenario there, simply.
Thanks, Richard. And we might now cut to your presentation, Jane, and if you want to kick that away and take us from here.
No worries, Ferg. I'll just work out this presentation. All right. So to give a wee bit of a summary, one of the biggest changes that we've made over the last 2 years is how we select the replacements. So there's a bit to this approach. So I'll first just summarize how the whole process fits together, just to give you a bit of context. And then I'll go back and I'll break it down into the practicalities of each of the recording events. So this approach typically begins at set stocking, where all the ewes are put into blocks according to birth type and dam age. So for example, the mixed age twins will lamb in a separate block to the two-tooth singles, etc. Majority of these mobs will stay in these blocks and be kept separate until after tailing. So, and for those Aussies joining us, lamb marking. At tailing time, all the potential replacements will get an EID tag and the team will record what they were set stocked as. So going on throughout the production system, the ewe lambs will get weighed at weaning time or within roughly 2 weeks of weaning, as sometimes it's just not practical on the day of weaning. The major difference with this approach is how we do the classing. So instead of drafting a line of replacements off on the day, we use it as an opportunity to score each of the animals for a number of traits that align with the breeding objectives. So for the past 2 years, what we've done is the animals are structurally assessed, scored for fleece rot, for colour, wool type, assigned a phenotypic class, weighed and condition scored. So when I talk about fleece type, it is just whether or not they're going to hit wool contracts for Omarama. So then what I do is I'll combine all of the classing data with that birth information, and then I do the selection process electronically, and then the mob is kept together until shearing time, where the line of replacements is auto-drafted out of the shed. To break this down into practical terms, aside from a minute of writing in a notebook, the only actual job at tailing is putting a tag in the sheep's ear. So what the team will do is just ensure that they're tagging in numerical order. They'll write down the start and end tag number of the mob, and then they write down what mob they are and what block they're in. So, for example, that just looks like maybe tag number 1 to 2,500 are the the two-tooth twins.
I'll let you gather your thoughts there, Jane. But Richard, if you wanted to just come back to, like you started putting EID in before it was even knew what I was going to do with. I guess wondering what the thought process back then was, as in you knew there'd be future in data, you just weren't sure what it was maybe?
We were mainly focusing on the potential for improving our fertility. So we have a scanning contractor who wanted to do, well, we wanted to push each other, if you like, to get more value out of the scanning And the best way we could do that was by being able to record against that tag their lifetime fertility status, I suppose. And at the same time, we added scales onto the scanning crate. So we had a weight profile and the ability after we, and we're slow learners. It took us a year or two to make use of the sort of twinning data and all that sort of thing. But then with the aging the fetus, of then matching where an early or mid or a late twin or a single went on the station, because we've got a huge range of block potential. So those really good early blocks lower down the hill that have got access after lambing to get down onto some lucerne, etc., natural place for our early twins. So that was our first focus, basically. And we also had a pretty clear idea of what we thought the best types of sheep were that we were selecting for. But by having the EID data, we were able to prove that they were actually the more fertile sheep. And early on in the piece, when we did the analysis, the ewes that we called royals, when we classed them out in the first place, proved to be hands down way more productive and profitable than some of the other ones. So it confirmed for us the general direction we were going on, but now we're getting more sort of, razor edge about what we can look at as we build more and more data.
Excellent. Thanks, mate. Sorry, Jane, I'll cut in there, but I'll hand back to you.
No, that was worthwhile cutting in. As you can probably hear in my voice, a wee bit nervous. So I did need that time to collect my thoughts. So to give you a bit of a visual representation of what the classing process actually looks like, as you can see this wee video that you're looking at now, thank you for Richard for doing a wee time lapse of the process last year. So you've got Will on the right, and he's scoring for the three wool traits, giving them a phenotypic class and scoring them for structure. And then my job at the front is I am weighing and condition scoring all the animals. And then Richard, our efficient operator in the middle, he is just doing the gates for us because it makes it easier, more efficient.
So my only
so
job is
when I talk
just
about
doing the gates. Sorry, I was going to say that apart from a technical process, I shouldn't interrupt, but apart from a technical process, it actually does mean that all three of us get a pretty good opportunity to look at the sheep as well as talk about, the types that are coming across the classing race. So, it's a process that works really, really well. Sorry, Jane.
To give you a wee bit of an idea of time frame, this year we were averaging about 5 sheep a minute for the classing process to collect all of that data. So how classing was done in the past, just on phenotype and structure, that was a day of classing, and this hasn't changed the process at all. This still remains a day of classing. So at the moment, I just want to reiterate that I just want to make sure that you guys don't think there is an issue with fleece rot there. But we're just looking at the trait of fleece rot down the bottom. This scoring scale of 1 to 5. This is what we're looking for, and this is the type of scoring that we're doing on each animal. And the two graphs you're looking at is just the difference between what was kept in and what was culled from the mob.
And importantly, like they were on different scales, those two graphs. So but you can see there's a whole lot more. If you flick back one, Jane, a whole lot more. So basically, in the keeper mob, there's 97% of score 1, which is pure white, no sign of anything, and then score 2, there's a small, there's 3% there, which is score 2, which is a bit of a discoloration of band, but no crusting and less than 10 mil band, so just a little bit of tiny bit of yellow somewhere in the shoulder probably. And then you look at what was culled, and this is obviously done. These are scored, and then this is done. This is done by a spreadsheet, obviously, but then you look at that cull mob and there's kind of 100 sheep that knocked out of that original mob of over 2,000 or 2,500. There's a small number there that are score 3, which is getting a bit more banding, and then score 4 is at 20 or 30 sheep there, which have actually got what you would call fleece rot with a bit of crusting, either severe or a little bit, but which you'd see in most young sheep. So these were done at just under 11 months of age, are they, Richard, Jane, something like that?
They would have been more like 9 months old.
9 months, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
So just to get into it, Richard touched on a lot of these before, but just to really summarise the benefits that I've found with this approach. So looking at the bottom, this wee table you're looking at here is what I pulled together from comparing at weaning time. So we get all the weaning weights and I compare the weaning weights with that birth information that we've collected. So then we can see, we know what's the average weaning weight of all the blocks from set stocking. So that gives us really good feedback on the success of set stocking. And then we can compare to this next year. So we can look at maybe, do we need to prioritise the two-tooth twins a wee bit better, or just helps with making those decisions on farm. And with the whole process, it really just removes some of the subjectivity around classing, and it gives us really good, because we're measuring individual traits, it gives us comparability from one year to the next. And it also, because we're collecting that birth information, it means we're making we're not biasing for birth type or dam age when we're making these selection decisions. So do you want to, probably a good one to throw to Richard now, just to talk a wee bit about the financials, and what was the cost of tagging everything at tailing time as opposed to waiting till everything was classed in, and how have you found this process so far?
It was a bit of a thing to know that we're going to be tagging out of, say, 4,500 ewe lambs born, and we tag pretty much all of them. We don't, unless it's really small or, very obviously got a big problem, we do tag most of them. So by the time we take out 1,850 replacements, you could say we waste $4,000 worth of tags, but the fact that further down the track we're able to make a much more educated draft when we can, through the spreadsheet and Jane's work, we can reflect the fact that that is a twin born to a two-tooth that was born on the near island, and the average there because of the twins, etc., and the profile we can start to build up about the abilities of the individual blocks comparative to more favourable ones or harsher ones. Just means that $4,000 upfront investment is pretty small beer once we get the momentum rolling, and when we look for later on about being able to make decisions about whether to drench or not. We're making big savings now on selecting sheep that don't need to be drenched so often. So every drum of drench that we save is, at the moment in New Zealand anyway, is sort of $700 or $800, $900. So quickly you get your $4,000 tag cost back.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard. So this second part of the presentation, I'm just going to talk about how we're utilising EID in the mixed age ewe flock. So Omarama had scanning their electronic scanning records back to 2014, and probably the biggest change that we've made, or the only additional recording that's now happening, is all of the mixed age ewes are getting a condition score at crutching and also at shearing. So what that means is it gives us a really good, over a 12-month span, we know how that ewe went in, how that ewe was condition-wise pre-pregnancy, so pre-tap. We know how that ewe was handling her pregnancy, and then we also know how she bounced back at crutching the next year. So what I've done is, with all the recording that we've been doing, I have combined it into one file. And if you just bear with me for a wee moment, I'll stop screen sharing and I'll find you a different wee document. And just so to give you a bit of an example of how this all fits together. So what you're looking at here, down the bottom, I have a separate tab separate sheet for all of the year groups, so all of the tag colors at the bottom. So as you can see, we've got our condition scoring data, and then when we talk about this repro history, under preg history, this is what she's scanned every year, and from the left, reading from the left to the right, the left being her 2023 scanning, and then as it moves through the age groups. So this animal health here, so what we're starting to build into this as this approach is monitoring who are the ewes that are getting a drench. And now at a scale of 7,500 mixed age ewes, at crutching time, do you want to tell us a wee bit about the protocol that you're now using with drench, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. And just one little sort of clarification on that pregnancy status. Unfortunately, one year of scanning, there was a loss of some of the data, which is why there's those zeros there, which is just simply a techie type thing. But at drenching time, we basically run them up the race and we put a hand on them, and we're doing the same thing again at shearing right now. Put a hand on them and give them a condition score, and anything less than 2.5 gets drenched. So we have one person with a bit of chalk in their hand, and they are condition scoring them, recording that against their ear, and if they need a drench, then they just get a little dot of chalk on the back of the head or something like that, and they'd follow up drenched. The sort of percentages we're drenching these days at each operation is between sort of 8 and 16%. So as opposed to blanket drenching or being less sort of accurate about why we're not drenching them, we're getting pretty accurate on the body score. And it's my initial probably reluctance was I just thought 7,500 at a busy time, this is going to be a nightmare. But actually, it's proven to be something that really is just as quick, if not quicker, than the blanket drenching, obviously, because we're finding that we're only drenching very small numbers out of the mob. And I'm loving the fact that we can then subsequently monitor that if those sheep weren't drenched, are we seeing them falling off a cliff? Because we're not into seeing our productivity go down just because we want to reduce our drenching. But with the data, we can see that actually not drenching them, or drenching the ones that needed to be drenched and not drenching the others, is proving to be just as, productive and profitable as when we were taking the easy way out and just blanket drenching them. I hope that answers your question there, Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably worth talking about the practicalities of condition scoring all of your mixed age ewe flock twice a year. So at both of these times, you're keeping up with a shearing gang. Do you want to just talk about the practicalities, and have you found that how much extra time the sheep in the yards for?
The only barrier in the first place was in my head because I thought it would, and the guys who work for us have all embraced it, and they're probably younger and much more techie. It doesn't take us any more time than it used to. We've changed the time that used to be taken drenching everything and put it into the condition scoring. And it's a really good process for the guys who work for us, that they literally get a good handle on where our sheep health is at that time. So it provokes quite a lot of discussion, and it just makes people think about it more. Again, a bit like the classing regime, we're not faced with shitloads of sheep that are coming out of the shed and we're having to work late to get them done. It's just the same as it was before.
Awesome. So one of the huge bits of potential that we see with this approach now is that we can utilize this information to identify who are our underperforming stock. So I'll give you a quick idea, visually show you how that looks. So with this 12-month average body condition score, so if we say we want to know who are all of the ewes that are sitting for the last 12 months, sitting below an average condition score of 2.5, scroll down. So this is these guys here. So what I've done across all of the age groups, it doesn't want to do it. I've got them all in one sheet together. So it means that we can identify the bottom performing stock, and then we can start looking at all the other information that we've got available, and we look at how many times have they given us twins, or are they consistently late scanning single lambs, and how many times are they drenched.
How long have you been drenching by condition score?
This is we're going to starting our third year of doing that. And as I said, the nervousness probably that we felt in the first place of would we then see things taper off. I mean, we can measure that it's not far from it. It's, we've had a challenging season this year, and well, in different ways they're always challenging, aren't they? So no, it's been something that we're comfortable with doing, and I guess you just kick yourself for not doing it sooner. But those last pages that James putting up there, where you get down into those poorer performing ewes, obviously they are the ones that get drenched more often, but you're also the ones that are getting more of the mids and the M's and the L's coming up in their data.
Yeah.
And what I'm really excited about, and Jane and I had this conversation the other day, and we sort of were both rushing to get to it at the same time, is at weaning time coming up this year, I'd love us to put the slide rule over our annual draft ewes and work out which ones are still at the top of their game, and out of roughly 850 that we'll be looking to cull, whether we keep 400 of them because they've still got lots of gas in the tank, and then look for another 450 of those bottom of the league table ones. And on that bell curve of, productivity for us, it seems to me like we could make some really, really big forward steps of getting rid of that bottom 1% this year and compounding that, so we start to really tighten that curve up. And we can only do that with the quality of the data, but we can also manipulate the data till we get the right number, because it's not like we're in the yards with sheep that have done well or badly. They just they're in front of you and you're waving the drafting gate around. We can take the time and then put them through the auto drafter and take them out, and we can physically look at them again if we choose to. But before we get to that stage, we know how many we want to take out, why we're taking them out, and we can then monitor year on year what impact that has on those poorer performing ewes and our drench resistant status, the reduction in lates, etc. So that's the really exciting stuff once you've got the boat up and planing and you start to build up the data. And as I say, we're probably a bit slow to be as aggressive as we're being now, but it's probably that you build confidence by doing one step at a time. And we're finding that it's not adding a big labour component. It's not taking us longer to do. And I'm kicking myself that we didn't do it sooner, to be honest.
I think it's just phenomenal to look across those spreadsheets and look at the individual power that you've got now. And I think, 5-10 years ago, whatever it was, you had great power from kind of seeing mob-based stuff and learning that sort of stuff. But now into the individuals, it just keeps snowballing. It's cool. You got more presentation, Jane?
And I think I'm gonna make the executive call to get rid of the presentation, because it's a wee bit distracting. Just looking straight at the presentation. We're pretty much finished anyway. But I've absolutely loved sinking my teeth into the stuff at Omarama. It has been really, really cool to see it all come together like it has now, and the amount of really exciting conversations that we have. Jumped on the phone with Richard this morning and chatted about how we can utilize the weight data that we're getting at scanning time. So as he touched on earlier, at scanning, we're also getting a weight. So now we have a weaning weight, a classing weight, and we're going to have a weight every year at scanning time for our ewes. And of course that includes a fetus, but then can we do a sample weigh of the ewes at crutching time, because that's pre-tup, and then can we see how that weight changes from those ewes, the sample weigh compared to what we get at scanning time, and then we can understand how much weight a ewe is gaining as they're carrying a twin, and how much weight they're gaining as they're carrying a single fetus, and then we can get a really good understanding of our weight profile, and then we can identify who is the most efficient ewe in terms of weight, in terms of condition score, in terms of what she's consistently producing for the system. And it just really, and then it shifts our breeding objectives and where we're our goals? And then can we look, sorry, I'm talking very fast, but then can we look at ram selection criteria, and do we start selecting for adult ewe weight in our rams? Or that's just a complete tangent, but just highlighting some of the potential.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing of data, it becomes addictive, and once you know something, you want to know more, and that's the beauty of this stuff. If I could just quickly chuck a slide up to maybe share a point as well. This is just want to quickly cover what happens if you don't use the data, and this is what we sort of wanted to first protect against, and how we convinced, or why we wanted to convince Sandra and Richard and Annabelle to put those tags in earlier, because if we don't know this bit, which is single and twin born, this is what professional classes do. So you'll end up, and this would be the same if it was us or anybody, if in your keeper mob you end up with 70% singles and 30% culls, and in your in your cull mob you end up with 70% twins and 30% culls. So by not having who's a single and twin, and you just go by your eyes, you end up culling a lot of twin-born progeny, which might be your best progeny, they might not be, but I guess the whole process that the team at Omarama and Jane and Will have been through is to protect ourselves against that. And if we look at what happens, and so they're all the traits that were being scored on the day. And then if we look at, we go down to what happened in terms of birth type. So within an Omarama station, you end up with a really good balance between what's keepers and culls. And in fact, you've got a few more twins kept in the keepers than we have in the culls. So we've taken out that, and this was, we lost a bit of data here, obviously, but taken out that effect, which is evident in every merino classing that happens internationally, is that we preferentially select singles, and by having that data in front of us and using all that information, we've ended up with making sure we haven't disadvantaged those twins, and particularly twins out of maidens. So I think, I just want to quickly chuck that up there, because I think it's a really cool outcome from the process, and all the hard work that's gone into it is to be, in addition to having a crack at those older girls, the ones that need to go out, but also doing a better job of those ones going in. So as the time goes on, we'll see how this combination of better ewes going in and then those bad ones going out, and you can imagine a point where you go, right, we actually don't want to keep any female progeny out of that bottom 30% of the ewes or whatever it is, or 15%, and they go to either a terminal, or I still might go to a merino, but it's just a super growth merino that we don't really care about the wool on, because we know that we're not going to keep them as replacements or whatever. I guess knowledge is power and data is power, which is pretty cool. Is there any questions out there? You'll have to whack them in the chat if you can, but
I would love there to be some questions. I think the one thing that we try to resist is we don't want to be just creating data for the sake of it, so that it makes an untidy pile in the corner of the office. But with the fact that obviously we employ people here, the fact that a new stock manager or our shepherds can look at the data and see the trend and know why we're doing stuff, even down to what the impact is of that block, why we don't put so many sheep in that block, or why there are only lates that go into there, etc. Because our data shows that block just can't handle it, and the fact that also if you've got a twin coming from a less favourable block and it's a slightly lower birth weight, because we know it came from that area, we can actually give it more a leaning when we come to cull or keep, which is an extension of the twin versus single thing. That stuff will just get more and more powerful the more data we have.
Yeah, and I guess the other exciting thing is that if you had 100 sheep around the golf course at Omarama or something, this is probably not that exciting, but at the scale that you're operating at means that, there's probably no excuse for anyone. If you can do it with 7,500, 8,000 ewes, then most people haven't got an excuse. And I think we hear a lot of chat in Australia about the imposing EID on the system, but I think we definitely have to approach it from a position of opportunity rather than position of negativity. Question coming from Mark Ragg: how did you come to the decision of what condition score to drench at? Was that trial and error? So what's that cut off based on, Richard?
I think it was a discussion that we had between Corey, our stock manager, and Jane at the time. We felt that above 2.5, and I guess it's our version of 2.5, above 2.5 was a healthy, fit hill U, and the ones below that, we weren't trying to say we only want to drench a few, so we're going to put it at a level. It was above that level. We felt that they were fit and able to get in lamb and raise lambs. So I guess that's our criteria. I'm not sure whether that's very precise, but it's what we're using, and consistently that's what we're using.
What's too early to tell, but you'd imagine not the drench status impact of that is going to be really favourable, as in the resistance of worms to drenches should be reducing, if anything, under that regime.
Yeah, I mean it's refugia on a whole flock basis, and the most important thing about it is this is not a crusade and we're going to do this sort of damn the torpedoes. If we started to see production and animal welfare and health and all that sort of thing decline, then we'd have to rethink this. But at the moment, I keep on thinking, how many years did we spend drenching everything when at the moment we're sitting below 20% at the most that are getting a drench? And again, we're having challenges climatically and condition-wise or whatever, and it's not making a big it's not making any impact on the performance. So that's probably one of the biggest ones, actually. And being able to look at lifetime data and make a selection and start really aggressively targeting those ones that are having singles, that are late at the extreme edge and have been drenched a couple of times out of 3 or whatever. Well, they just got to go. There's no reason for them to be here, is there?
Yeah, good point. Henry's just asked a technical question because it's Henry, but have you WEC tested the light condition score animals and compared to WEC tested the high condition score animals? I'm thinking not, but I'll ask the question.
No. Thanks, Henry.
What are the bare minimum records needed to start drawing a useful picture?
That would be a question for Jane, wouldn't it?
I think so.
I was just thinking, having flicked through some of the notes. So I would say your birth information, if you're going to, I think,
Yeah, definitely birth information. Like if you don't, what you miss at marking, or unless you keep your mob separate after tailing, marking, docking, whatever you call it, you will, so that how old was mum, mixed age of 2 tooth, and whether it was a single or twin is, if you miss that at tails off, then you miss the data, but I'll let you continue, Jane.
So probably just that birth information, what it was set stocked as, birth type, and it's really practical and easy to actually record, and especially at scale. And then your weaning, that's pretty straightforward too. That's just straight through your scales. And then, but it probably comes down to, as a hogger, it comes down to what your priorities are, I think, in your breeding objectives, whether you're a wool focus system and are you having a huge issues with, say, fleece rot, colour. Like I think it just, where are identifying the faults in your system and actually measuring those traits. Like if you're got a huge issue with foot rot and you're having huge issues with feet, actually measuring feet and building that into your selection process as a hogget. And then as a mixed age ewe, a condition score is just the biggest thing. So I'm just reading Henry's question.
I think Jane answered well, and then I guess keeping that reproductive record is relatively simple as well. If you've got a scanner that's recording it, or even if you haven't, you can just wand that entire mob or run those entire mob past a panel or whatever of the singles and twins. So that kind of stuff, lifetime repro record goes on as a which is where Richard and Annabelle started. I think that's a fairly key point as well. Henry's trying to
Before
work
we go to before we go to that, can I ask, once you've shifted that bell curve, which you're heading towards, what's your next thing you're going to be picking up on? You know, if you've got all of your earlies and they're all scanning twins, earlies, and nice, what's next to improve?
It'll be just kicking back on a tropical island by then.
I mean, that's a huge question, but it's that refinement. Okay, so I mean, we're never going to get to they're all earlies, they're all twins, and I mean, in terms of the nature of the property, we would struggle to raise 7,500 sets of healthy twins. So I guess it comes down to kgs of lamb weaned and kgs of good quality wool harvested. And at the moment, we haven't tilted. This is probably lack of ambition. We haven't tilted at the wool side of it because, to be quite honest, our sort of analysis is that the wool is going pretty well. I'm sure it could do better, but there's a better financial impact from more and better, healthier lambs weaned. So that's our focus at the moment, fertility. But we're, in all honesty, if we get that right, if we get better lambs, then we're going to get better wool anyway. And that's so the one follows the other. But you can ask that question of the two kids when they take over, Sophie. All right, because it's not that far away. No, we'll always look at throwing another hamster into the wheel, but yes, productivity, but also about cost reduction of getting animals that need less, less attention to their feet, less drenching, less crutching or whatever. If we can reduce the DAG score and all those kind of things, it's a up the income on the one side and depress the expenditure on the other side, isn't it? And create the gap between the two. So anything that, and quite often with this kind of data, you don't realise what you're going to find out until you've found it out. Because some of the stuff that you hopefully you get what you were targeting, but there's always stuff around the bullseye that you didn't realise you were going to get.
A good point. I don't know if we said it before, but there is definitely important that all of this stuff is backed up by ram buying decisions. So all of the traits we've talked about tonight are top of the list when Richard, Annabelle and team head off to buy rams every year. It's condition score through fat and muscle. It's worm air count through that breeding value and looking at the foot rot breeding value and all the things that we're kind of scoring on the sheep, growth, all those things are looked at in the ram. So the beauty of, I think, is that combination that you see lots of people that might decide to go and stop drenching or whatever, and they still buy the same rams or buy rams that are positive for worm egg counts and kind of stop drenching, which is pretty close to lunacy. Whereas, you've got to do things in combination, so you're working on both ends, which I think makes the whole thing go even quicker. We should tackle Henry's question, which is, how do you know the light condition scores are light because of worms, or do you just find they pick up after a drench? And should we just be preferentially feeding those low condition score ones and not drenching, which is relevant? I guess we all know that light condition score sheep have a lower, the immune system is reduced, so drenching they are likely to be the wormy ones, but not necessarily the wormy ones. But I guess my answer would be, it looks like it's working, so ain't broke, don't fix it. But has anyone got any other thoughts, Richard?
Well, in terms of that, if over time they are repeat offenders, I mean, I think a one-time pick-me-up that then reflects that sheep has maybe, raised twins. If they've raised twins and they're a bit down at heel and they're a bit light in condition, then they've been productive and they need a bit of help. I get that. But if you can see that they're having that, at the hard end, that single lamb and it's light and they're light, then if they do that more than once, I mean, you've got to say there's a trend, especially in a relatively short productive life. So I'd love to see Henry on the video so that he can disagree with that. But if they do it more than a couple of times and they are being fed as well as their sisters that are around them and they're being more profitable, then I'd rather keep their sisters than keep them, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Can I just jump in here? Oh, sorry, you go.
No, you go.
So throughout the year, after crutching, after shearing, after scanning, I pull a lot of the information together and I do a bit of analysis for the Omarama Station team. So that's where we can keep track of where we're sitting as a mob, as between age groups, in comparison, like condition scoring comparison to our scanning last year. I'll just show you a quick, give you an idea what this looks like. Right, so these, so the two reports that you can see on the right, not the left. On this right one, this was done at crutching this year, and I've compared our condition score at crutching this year to scanning last year. I pulled apart conception cycle as well as number of fetuses. And on the right, I've pulled apart all the different age groups of ewes. So we're understanding, is it an age group thing? How they reflect? And then I've also compared, there was 5 different mobs. I've also compared condition score according to between the mobs and the age groups. So this kind of tracks. So this, I don't know if this answers your question, Henry, but throughout the whole production system, throughout the year, we are trying to get a really good understanding of where we're sitting in terms of condition score, across, trying to get a better understanding of why we are in the condition score we are, and not just relying on the fact that maybe they're picked up just because they've had a drench. Did that make sense?
Made sense to me, yeah.
Did it make sense to Henry?
Well, he's quite hard to explain stuff to sometimes, but the good thing is he can't talk back in this forum, so we're winning. Today he's not typing either. It's probably just a quick opportunity to talk through our Gene Smith technology, so the only gap that's left in the work that Omarama are doing and Jane's assisting with is we know what they scanned into a paddock as, we don't know what they wean out of that paddock. So we know they go in with early twins, but do they come out with one or two, and is it a good one or a not so good one? So that's where Gene Smith is aiming to solve that problem at commercial scale through cameras. At the moment, reading tags, but in the future, reading using facial recognition to match lamb with dam. So we've got that running at the moment, and I haven't got I should have a video, but haven't. So it's running in Victoria at Cavendish at Ricky Amani Lewis's place, and it's basically the camera scans the paddock, finds a ewe, and works out if it's got a lamb next to it, and if it has, it does a match and then records that, and so through probability works out that. So I was going to say early days. We've been in it 5 years, so it's sort of late-ish days, but I think one day it'll be a 10-year overnight success. Cameras are going well. A few little hiccups we didn't expect happened today, but we'll be back on deck in the next few days, hopefully. But yeah, I think as this industry gets better and we start using not just some of the technology we've had for 20 years, but some of the stuff we don't have yet or is about to be available, I think we can just get better and better. Things like some of those visual scores that we're assigning, can we have some of them done by cameras as they're running up the race or even before they get to the race? I think it's an exciting space to bring cameras and artificial intelligence and sheep together. Anyway, so that's just a quick plug not a plug, but just a kind of being aware that we're not getting all the information, but we're doing great things with what we've got. And as technology comes about, we'll even do better than that. So it'll be things like maternal efficiency, how many or the kilos of lamb weaned per kilo of ewe that went to the ram are kind of things that will become, we can find them out. And even if we only do the maiden ewes, because we know that from previous work we've done at Omarama that a made new recording is a pretty good indication of what happens in the next lambing as a minimum. So that kind of stuff, I think, this whole data space just will keep spiraling up. And I think, it was kind of 2001 when EID sort of became, when the XR 3000 was available, that sort of gear that we used to use. So it's, we're kind of a quarter of a century in, and probably only just really starting to utilise its value because of other aspects of improving at the same time. So, you can imagine what I think the next 25 years is going to be a whole lot more exciting than the last 25 in terms of how the technology will shift. And I think a lot of it, I think Richard put it really well, and that kind of is this mental block against, that's too much work, or we don't have the time, or we don't have the labour, or we don't have the whatever. But it's kind of, well, let's give it a crack and see if we can fit it in with our current production systems. And sometimes that doesn't work. I'm not going to lie, but other times it does. And then, you've already commented, Richard, but you might have another comment. But I think a team that sees that information, that level of information, is so much more empowered than kind of just knowing they've got a good underway or a good heading dog and that they'd had a good run up the hill today. It's kind of, I guess, that mob-based data, and really, I think once you see, you can't unsee data. Once you've seen it and know that those sheep are a bit lighter than they could have been, or in good condition, and they come out of that block, you kind of just keep, every day is a school day once you've got a bit of data around you.
It is really powerful. I don't think we should be so hard on ourselves. I mean, 26 or 7 years ago when we started, we had an eminent Australian sheep classer who used to come here, and he absolutely selected only for singles, basically. He was very anti any twin lambs. And so, to be honest, it's amazing to me that merinos are as fertile as they are, given that for a couple of 100 years, whether we selected or just nature did its job, we selected against fertility. So I think that having slowed the boat down for so long, the potential for us to speed it up and to make it easier for them to do better, and same for us, is huge. And the tech, I'm far from being a tech lover. We've taken small steps, and we've made sure that it's not become unmanageable to do these things just to make Ferg's day or whatever. We're not here to make Ferg's day, although it's a big part of it. We're here to make it stimulating for the people who work for us, so they will then feel more engaged and breed better stock and get a virtuous cycle going up rather than a painful cycle going down. And so far, we just probably the biggest criticisms is that I haven't been faster to push it, and I wish that we had, but we've got a lot of potential in front of us to tighten up that bell curve and not work harder, but just have probably less sheep being way more productive, with less health problems, etc.
Yeah, for sure. I think the key take home there is that small steps part. I think often you can see that the end point, which is now we've got a big, powerful data set in front of you that everyone looks at that and goes, well, that's heaps of work, but it's kind of just, it's the Kaizen principle of Toyota, that you just, one thing better each day kind of thing, one little improvement, one process improvement, or one new measure each year or whatever, and just slowly build that so that no one's ever really out of their comfort zone, but things get slightly better each time. Is there any other questions? We might just wrap it up here, and then if we're happy to hang around and answer a few questions if some bounce in. But just wanted to quickly really thank Richard and Annabelle for A, putting the data up tonight, and B, for allowing us to really go hard on the data at the Omarama Station, and because I think it's really exciting to see what happens when we can do it at that scale. A massive thank you to Jane. There is literally no way that we would have got that level of detail out of me and Will. We would have we needed someone with Jane's brain and real enthusiasm and focus on the details to get to that level, which is really awesome. And I think it's laid the foundations for some really good stuff going forward. So hats off to the team at Omarama there and Jane for really, I think, leading the industry on how we're using data. I don't know many other. There's a few others around, flocks that are sort of using it to this level, but not very many. And I think, and certainly not many at this scale. And I think it's a really, really great thing to show leadership in this area. And while everyone wishes we would have done things more innovative earlier, it's obviously still leading edge, if not bleeding edge, on implementing this stuff, which is fantastic. So we'll wrap it up there, and then we'll and thank both Jane and Richard and Sophie for setting tonight up, and then we'll hang around afterwards if there's any other questions.
And just to endorse that, you and Will definitely couldn't have done it. And Jane, has been very patient with us and explained what we can achieve. And I'm not just saying it; she's added tons to this process for us, and it's been really worthwhile. So a big thank you to Jane.
Thank you so much. It's been such an awesome opportunity just to really sink my teeth in and just see the potential. And I think it's really cool that everybody involved in this gets us excited about where we're heading and the potential. So really enjoying the process. Thank you.
Thanks all. Right, team. So we're going to round it up there, but if there's any questions, whack them on the chat and we'll hang around for a few minutes to answer them, or we'll just stare at the screen and see what comes in. But thanks again.
Okay, the recording's finished now, is it? The chat time,
still, I think we can now yap away. There are still people listening, so don't start abusing anybody.
No one's going to abuse it. I'd love some more questions from the people out there other than Henry.
Have you got any subsoil moisture down there, or is it still dry? Or
have I got any subsoil moisture? Well, the irony is we just started shearing and then it started raining and snowing and stuff. But it's still pretty slippery on the surface. It hasn't sunk in. But I mean, it's moisture now is a bit of a waste of time, really. We could lose it all in 2 weeks in October.
Yeah.
But we have got. Especially once you know so much more about your sheep and their pregnancy status, it really pisses you off when you have to dick them around and hold them, and try not to get them too full because you want to run them into the shed, but you can't and all that sort of thing. So that's where we're at the moment. But hopefully tomorrow we'll get going properly after 2 or 3 full starts. But I think it's been pretty widespread. The shearers haven't gone anywhere else because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, it looks like it, which we needed.
So the other people who are watching are slowly tapering off. So are you happy enough with that, Sophie Barnes?
I am very happy with that. It was wonderful. Show what EID can do. Perfect.
Mark Ragg wants to know when we're coming out with software to handle it, to do yourself out of a job, whereas there's about 15 companies trying, but I just haven't seen any of them succeed yet, and there might be some watching and not agree with me. I don't know, but there are certainly different bits of software that do different things. I guess a lot of them, it is hard to automate, hard to get exactly what Omarama Station want, and also get exactly what Stony Earth want, and also get exactly what Middle Earth want and Muller want, and all the other places all have different breeding objectives and different data and different collection dates. And that's been the struggle, really, is that inconsistency of what people want out of it, which makes it really hard to design software for. And I think it's not from lack of trying or lack of will. It's just really difficult, particularly at the investment level that ag software operates at, where you might, if you absolutely smashed it out of the park, you get 2,000 copies or something, whereas you write a half decent app and you might sell 100,000 versions of it. It's I think software is hard in ag, and no doubt it'll. Well, I don't know about no doubt, but eventually it will get there. There's lots of Monty's having a bit of a crack with his bit of software, and lots of different pieces, but I think you still need a human to go in and find the gold and sift out those little insights and stuff, I think, because you sometimes don't even know what you're looking for.
I think the biggest value that I see in what the service that we've provided is just being that practical link right from grassroots and being involved in the recording right the way through to it's not just a recording software, it's recording, you're getting everything in that in what we've done and achieved.
Yeah, and I mean, so you're thinking about how much you'll sell. I mean, there are an awful lot of slightly overlapping and slightly complementary software packages. Then you just end up with a computer screen clustered with them, and it's all they're all fighting for a small slice of quite a small pie, and they're endlessly needing to invest in it again. I mean, I would rather, we need to back a horse and go with it. So I mean, in terms of the management thing, we use FarmIQ. I'm not saying it's the best one. It has weaknesses, but it does more things better than the other ones that are very diffuse. And I don't want to have 1,000 icons on my home screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the bit of software we have had designed is automating that sort process, which is you can chuck in all of the measures and then chuck in your rank of those traits and it'll rank those sheep for you. But you still need to have collected it and got it into a file, CSV file, and loaded into that bit of software to run. And I think things like FarmIQ and others like it are good for management stuff. Individual EID stuff is still found that hard. Jane's just banking her irreplaceable comment here, which is good.
Right.
Righto, team. Well, we got a scorecard to go, have we, Sophie? Are we allowed to leave? Excellent. Thanks all for listening. Thanks again for Richard and Jane for hosting us, and thanks for those that have turned up to have a listen. This will be out on YouTube in some number of hours or days. 2 days, 2 hours, 2 days. That might have been. Righto. Thanks, team.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you later. See you.
Thank you.